Previously on Here's the Story.
People of Pennsylvania woke up to the fact that they've been raped by the coal companies and steel companies and railroad. Their landscape, their environment had been ravished and exploited bitterly. They kind of like a sleeping giant of people woke up and said, enough is enough.
You got the largest law firms hired by big companies trying to literally obliterate families.
The right to pure water, clean air, and a healthy environment are inherent and indefeasible rights. These are rights that don't just belong to the people here today, but they belong to all the future generations yet to come.
Our whole world is our environment.
Are you concerned about the environment?
Very much, yes.
We are having to do the work of continuing to hold that industry accountable for their insults and assaults on the environment and on communities.
And we looked at it, and we looked at our Constitution. We said, you got to go back and do it right.
The court had given life to the Environmental Rights Amendment for the first time. So it was it was very exciting.
I think I felt it for a moment. And then it was really like, okay, now what do we do with this?
You know, in the state of Pennsylvania, they actually have a green amendment that ensures that Pennsylvania residents are entitled to clean air, clean water, and healthy environment. What do you think about that as an idea?
It's a good idea.
We're all beings. We all live on this planet together. Now we can either sit back and ignore that fact and let the world crash and burn, or we can do something about it and live together peacefully.
And what's your message to people your age about the environment?
You have a voice. You might be young, but you still have opinion. You could be in elementary school, you still have opinion, middle school, high school, it doesn't matter. You can always do stuff. Maybe not run a whole movement, but you can do little things in your town and don't ever think that you can't do anything.
Even if you're like a teenager or younger, you can still make a difference. You just need to try.
You have a voice, you can talk about it, and you should share it. You should use it. You can be loud if you want to.
Well, I think they represent the younger generations, and they're arguing quite persuasively that this is a matter for future generations, and we, as a senior citizens, and I can say that better than you two can, as senior citizens, we've got to look to our kids and our grandkids. And they're making a very valid point. When we passed the Environmental Amendment in 1971, the coal companies and the railroad companies and the steel companies had pretty well done their damage. And the legislature was reacting to what happened in the past. But with climate change, we can't wait for it to be complete. We got to stop it in mid-flight, so to speak. So we can't wait till this is over. There's a real imperative to act now. Now, an environmental amendment isn't going to do it by itself, but if it becomes part of a constitution, everybody taking public office under that constitution has to swear to uphold it. And that means whether it's in Canada or California or Pennsylvania, if you're sworn into office, you've got to swear to uphold the Constitution. This will be part of it. That'll give people adequate reason to go after their legislators and state and public officials to carry out this and stop climate change, to save the planet.
The Green Amendment is not only right and just, it's timely. It came in Pennsylvania some time ago, but it's hopefully going to be coming to other states soon. And when I say timely, because it is consistent with and cohesive to the ongoing problems we're having with an energy transition and climate change. You can't talk about those essential elements of the Green Amendment, clean air, clean water, healthy environment, stable climate. You're talking about climate change, and therefore you're talking about energy and the energy transition. So it's absolutely timely that this should be happening right now.
You know, the beauty of a Green Amendment is that when people hear about the concept, they are very quickly like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And when I go to other states, they're very quickly like, how do we make this happen here? What do we have to do next? It really is inspiring people to want to get this highest level of constitutional protection and recognition for their environmental rights. And so we have Green Amendment efforts advancing across the nation, with each effort at a different stage. But every state that is hearing about, learning about the Green Amendment is inspired by the power and importance of this approach.
We are the densest state in America. So the question I always ask myself when I say that is, would I care about it if we weren't? And the answer is yes. But it is literally existential for New Jersey. So it's right at the core of, in many respects, why people choose to live here, whether that means they stay here to bring their families up or they come here from other places. So I don't view it as optional. I think in an otherwise static environment, I would also be pro-environment in supporting the whole range of things that we're pursuing. But there's an intensity, I think, in our agenda because of that density, because of the fact we've got legacy issues on top of that. Enormous amount of commuting that goes with that density. Mm-hmm. Our location, which I wouldn't change for anything, but comes with it a lot of environmental challenges.
The people of New Jersey value the environments that they have. The people of New Jersey also recognize that their environment in many places, in many ways, has been seriously degraded and taken from the people of New Jersey. That their healthy rivers, that their forests, that their healthy plant and animal populations have been decimated in ways that it is actually taking these things from the people of New Jersey, right? The natural resources belong to the people of New Jersey, and the people of New Jersey are losing them to pollution and degradation because of the ways the laws are written and implemented in the state. And then again, we also have legislators and regulators, and the people of New Jersey view themselves as environmental protection leaders and have strived over many years to truly be on the cutting edge of a number of critically important environmental protection laws and actions and activities and decisions. And so when you roll all of that together, New Jersey is absolutely an important place to come to try to spark and advance the modern day Green Amendment movement, because the people of New Jersey and the legislators of New Jersey have every reason to want, to need, and to have a New Jersey Green Amendment.
My mother passed, so I came back to Trenton to live, and I could not stand the area because of it had gone down from the time when I was raised in that area. We have a lot of beauty in this community, in the community of Trenton, but it's overshadowed by a lot of the blight and a lot of the dumping. And if we didn't have the blight, we probably wouldn't have the dumping.
Environment has always taken a back seat when it comes to local funding issues. So we want to clean up the city, we want to take care of our parks, and we want to clean our waterways and make sure that it's a real fun, livable city for the next 100 years.
So Paulsboro is a small town that's surrounded by industry. Over 100 years ago, refineries were built around here. And as you know, the Delaware River is a huge import-export area for the various fossil fuels, mainly oil. The Paulsboro refinery is still operating here. There's also tank farms that feed pipelines, and there's also manufacturing of chemicals. And as a result, this town, which is sandwiched in between this industrial activity, has been impacted greatly and disproportionately by the pollution from these facilities.
If you don't have knowledge, you're subject to be exploited, dominated, and this is what happens. This is what happens in the inner cities in the state of New Jersey. They've been taken over by the politicians for their nefarious purposes, not, for the interests of the people, for their own personal interests. But it's our tax dollars that are being used, and then people don't know. If you don't have watchdogs in your city, to monitor what's going on, they'll do whatever they want, whether it's legal or illegal.
Right.
See, and what people don't understand is that not everything that happens, every law is enforced by the government. There has a lot of the laws there has to be a plaintiff because it's in the civil. Mm-hmm. It's like in the realm of civil law. So if you don't have a plaintiff to come forth and file the lawsuit, nothing's changing.
Yeah.
Even though it's illegal.
So local advocates were concerned about the possibility of the development of a jet port, similar to JFK. This area remained undeveloped for quite a period of time. It had quite the expansive area to accommodate a jet port, but recognizing the unique ecology, the history, the water supply needed to sustain the residents that were originally here, that it would be a complete devastation to the area. So fortunately, there were enough concerned citizens that took the issue up with the governor at the time, which was Brendan Byrne, and he also recognized the importance, was taken on a trip to the Pinelands by John McPhee, who's the author of the book, The Pine Barrens, and realized how unique and special it was in comparison to the other ecology in New Jersey, let alone regionally. And as a result of that, the governor at the time issued a moratorium on all development in the Pinelands that gave him enough time to work with other elected officials, not only at the local level, but also at the federal level, in order to get both federal and state protections for the area. The Pinelands somehow had just remained this isolated wilderness in the vast region of development along the East Coast. But it wasn't until some local company or national company said, oh, this looks like an ideal location, that got people working to protect that area, taking it for granted, as we all do, that a place is going to remain pristine and untouched for years to come. But as we know, that's not the case.
A Green Amendment becomes a powerful force to help support and bolster and strengthen the environmental justice movement in a transformational, fundamental way. What a Green Amendment does is it levels the playing field, because it makes very clear to everybody that all people, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their income level, regardless of their history, regardless of where they live, where they come from, that we all have the same right to pure water, clean air, a stable climate, and a healthy environment, and that every government official at every level of government is duty-bound to protect the environmental rights of all people equitably, including future generations.
Environmental justice, it has been and will continue to be a hallmark of our broader environmental agenda without question. And you mentioned Camden, right here in Trenton, Patterson, Elizabeth, the big communities, particularly those with an industrial legacy. The one that I use as the example most often is Newark, particularly in the wards in Newark that are adjacent to or closest to the ports. And you've got that enormous truck traffic in and out of the ports, and you look at the rate of childhood asthma in those wards that abut the ports, and they're multiples of the rest of New Jersey or the rest of America. And again, I think too infrequently, and I'm all for this, big oceans and big lakes and big vistas which need to be preserved and respected and protected, absolutely. But too often we leave those communities, the communities which are invariably communities of color, behind. And we are committed to not do that, whether it's community solar, whether it's tackling the CO2 emissions out of those trucks in and out of the ports, whatever it might be, we want to be just as committed to the environment in an urban community as we are in the great vistas of our state.
What's your reaction to the idea of a green amendment being passed in the state of New Jersey right now, today, modern times, and what that could mean for a community like Paulsboro suffering from PFAS contamination or any of these other contaminants that we're, seeing around us right now?
What it can mean is justice. It means justice for this community. There's no way to get to what we need in terms of a level playing field. Justice for all people, no matter where they live, what their income is, no matter what their background is. We need justice for everybody in every community, and we're not going to get there unless it's recognized by the state through the Green Amendment.
Why don't we have it now? Yeah, we need it now. We needed it yesterday. Yeah, it's something that we need. Yeah, absolutely, without question.
It's the ultimate protection. That's the ultimate. You can have municipal regulations, you can have state regulations, but the ultimate is embedded in the Constitution of the state or the federal Constitution. That guarantees everyone the same protections, the same rights. Clean water, clean air, land, uncontaminated land, all of those things should be guaranteed in the Constitution. Absolutely.
We want to let people know that it's not okay to live like that. It's not okay, and you don't have to, and you shouldn't, and don't. So we have to fight these things. We have to fight these things, but we have to teach our community, we have to teach everybody in our community as well that we can't live like this. We can't live like this. It's not acceptable.
Absolutely. A green amendment could have prevented the release of these toxic chemicals to the environment, which then made their way into drinking water and into people's bodies.
The kids in Trenton, they deserve a healthy environment, both clean water and clean air and clean land. It's necessary for Trenton's future. Not only do we want to attract more visitors, but we want to continue people coming into the city and leading productive lives.
The Constitution is our baseline, it's our foundation for the rights of citizens all throughout this country. And in my mind, it's something that no matter who you talk to, recognize the Constitution as the end-all be-all for them. And to add a Green Amendment to that, I think just now protects everyone, not only for their right to property and their right to free speech, but why not have the right to clean air and clean water? We need those a lot more than we need our free speech, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, people don't understand that connection, and having that would just be, in my mind, what we've needed for a long time.
When I think about the environment, I think of life or happiness or something like that.
You like being outside?
Yeah, I love being outside,
Are you
especially in the winter.
This is your backyard.
Yep.
What do you do back here?
I don't know. I play with my dog a lot, run around with my dog. Sometimes I'll bring the neighbors over and we'll have like a catch or something like that.
Do you think everyone deserves clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment?
Yes, because without clean air or clean water, we can't reach a next stage of evolution as a species or anything like that, and we're all just going to die off eventually.
What is your message to your own generation?
There's a lot of work to do, but it's good. And again, I think that we get bogged down because we as a generation feel like there's so many issues. There's people dealing with trying to help with impoverished communities, helping people of color, trying to support our friends who are in the LGBTQ plus community, trying to push safe reproductive rights for women. Like, there's so many issues for all of us. And for me, and I think for a lot of people, the environment is the big one, because if you don't have a planet to live on, you can't fight for all those other social justice people. So everyone's trying to balance everything, and I think it's really easy to get bogged down, and especially with people making the wrong decisions every day and people not believing in basic facts like climate change. It's so easy to get bogged down and just sit back and go, there's nothing that I can do. I can't solve anything. But even little things, throwing away or recycling that plastic bottle, choosing the reusable bag, and I think it's just remembering that we do have a voice and we do have power as young people, no matter how much other people try to tell us we don't, and that we spend all our time on the internet. We're actually a very educated and powerful group, and I just would hope that people don't get bogged down by all the negative and just always think that at the end of the day there's something good that you can do, small or big, and that all adds up to the big change. And I have no doubt that my generation will be the one to fix everything. So I just don't want people to be negative. I think it's better to always have hope. You can have your bad days, and you go to bed and you wake up and you go, okay, I had my bad day, I'm over it, now we're gonna make change today.
I would hope that policymakers and regulators would think not just as politicians and lawmakers and enforcers, but as parents and grandparents. If you truly do value science, if you truly do believe what science is saying about the impacts, the negative impacts on the environment and the profoundly negative impacts on climate change, then if you do not act to mitigate those, you are acting against the welfare and the health of your children and grandchildren, not somebody else's, your own. I'm going to be teaching a course at Cornell this fall, and what I intend to do on the first day of that class, which goes to the heart of this issue of young people and climate change and environmental degradation, I'm going to start the class by showing them a quote that I found online from an anonymous student someplace else, and the quote goes something like this: we students, we are the first generation who will suffer the consequences of climate change, but we're also the last generation who won't be able to do anything. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to do that again.
It's all right. That's the level of importance of the message. So I think we all get it. But
yeah,
take a moment.
I think I told you this, but almost every time when I went out to give talks, it's like preparing for a football game or a basketball game, whatever sport you're in. You know, you're supposed to psych yourself up for the kickoff or the tip-off or whatever. So I did the same thing in class. Every class I ever taught at Cornell, before walking into class, I always think, okay, what's a good way to get myself psyched up for this? I don't want to come across as boring, ordinary. I'm just going through the motions. What can I do to get myself? And so what I would do is open up my cell phone and look at the pictures of my grandkids. That's all it took. Heart rate would go up, and whatever. So what I intend to show my students this fall in the first class is a quote that I found online, anonymous. I don't know who first said it, and it goes like this: we are the first generation who will experience climate change, but we're also the last generation who will be able to do something about it. I want that quote to be inspiring while at the same time pretty heavy. I want students to think about that and react to it. And I suspect that it will scare some of them. But what I'm hoping is that will inspire them to do what 4 years of engineering education at Cornell and continuing education after that will do, which is to place those really bright students in positions in the not too distant future where they will be doing significant things to fight against the impacts of climate change. In other words, they will be defending my grandchildren.
The Green Amendment is not going to solve all the environmental problems that we continue to face. What a Green Amendment's going to do is it's going to give us a powerful tool. It's going to give us a powerful tool in the courtroom, in the community rooms, in elections and election decision making, in community organizing and advocacy, in inspiring people to rise up. I mean, you know, we can go back to the civil rights movement. Powerful and important strides have been made through the civil rights movement, through leaders like Martin Luther King and people like Kelly Francis, right? But there's still a lot of work to be done. If we don't demand and defend our rights every single day, they can be taken away from us in an instant. So we have to be constantly vigilant in protecting the rights we have and the strong protections and implementations we've secured through our advocacy, through our litigation, and through our vigilance. But there's also a longer way to go, right? The civil rights movement is not over. We have not achieved all of the civil rights that our communities of color and others need. Same as for the environment. We will always need to be vigilant, and we will always need to do more. But with a constitutional right to a healthy environment, we have taken the strongest legal authority we have in the United States of America, and we have given that authority and that power to the people to protect their rights to a healthy environment. And that is spectacular.
We are exactly what you see, bruised and scraped up knees. Still we find our way. Some come as quickly as they go. Some choose their own roads. Still they find